I'm gonna flow through the 8 steps of zero, teaching you my why behind each step, but I also have notes for all 8 steps that if we add them up, you're gonna know how to troubleshoot every single step. So if we start with the tibialis raise, the farther you stand, the tougher it gets. The closer you stand, the easier it gets. But for someone who couldn't even walk, you might want to invest in a tibialis bar because you can get this same strengthening angle with a pound. So you can get the same strengthening angle with even less than this. Now, if we look at this angle, we're going to use the actual videos from zero to show you every angle. What's the exact opposite of this in my lower body is the FHL calf raise. So I'm going to an ankle stretch. Now, the point that we teach here is that an exercise on 2 legs, theoretically, we could just go onto 1 leg and make it tougher. So that was tibialis raise this way, and then FHL calf raise that way. So far, we've just done the exact 2 opposing things. Now, another principle is that if you have a weak point, do a second set. None of us have done enough tibialis raises, so we always then go back to a second set of tibialis raises automatically. Now, we have blood flow, strengthening, and mobility through those ankles. So this is the key bridge step, step 3, is now reaching your knees over your toes, whatever's comfortable. So now we still have the previous points that can troubleshoot, meaning it regresses by how much load we put into it. It also progresses by going on 1 leg. I think the ability to handle your full ankle mobility, meaning to the point that the ankle, actually the heel comes off the ground, with that glute locked forward. I think this alone, being able to do 25 pain-free reps, would actually make sports so much easier. You could put that in on entire teams. You don't even need any equipment. But what if one side is weaker than the other? You start and finish with that side. So you would get 2 sets on the weaker side. So we still have those previous principles. We can do a second set to catch up. Now, if you think both are weak on this, do 2 sets of 25 on each. What are we doing? We're actually building the ability to handle things over our toes with our knee, so that directly bridges us. This means we can handle that strength, and that directly bridges us to our reverse step up. Not even touching, going to limit ankle mobility without even balancing. That would be ideal. The first thing you could do is balance. The second thing you could do is go less distance. But if any degree of this, if you're not feeling the muscles and you're just feeling the tendons or in the joint, we can troubleshoot this. Let's take a look at the ankle angle. By reducing the ankle angle with a slant board, so you'll need to get cinder blocks or something like that to elevate about 6 inches, then put a slant board or really anything to elevate the heel. You could use even, the middle of a dumbbell. I mean, you could get creative. I like a slant board if you're going to be loading heavy because it's smooth, but you could use just about anything to elevate that heel. So now look, so the ankle angle doesn't go as much as the Patrick version, but now it loads the knee more. And by adding PVC pipes and doing 1 to 2 sets of 25 per side. So if one side was weaker, do 2 sets on the week, 25, 25, 25, boom, that'll even you out. Using assistance with the PVC pipes, elevating and then adding a slant to elevate the heel can plateau bust then your ability to go knees over your toes without pain. And we have these other steps, so your ankles will get built fine too. Obviously, ideally, we would be able to handle, if your ankle can go to a certain point and you can't handle that, that would not be ideal. You see what I mean? So ideally, we would build from that version. Then in the next programs, we use the heel up anyway. So you win either way. The only way you lose is by working through pain. So if that's what it takes, if you can't get into this and feel the muscles working, boom, then you know you have to apply the heel up, elevate, and use PVC pipes until you don't need them. Absolute game changer for knee pain. Now, with our step up, our knee is going over our toes in this top position. Now, how do we train the very bottom of that? Is with the ATG split squat. Because notice this. Knees not over the toes, knees not over the toes, knees not over the toes, knees not over the toes. Now, only in that bottom position does it go over the toes. So you want to find the stance where you get the fullest pain-free coverage without the back knee touching the floor. So this brings us to the next point of regression, which is that we can regress mobility on this by elevating the front foot. That would reduce the angle of how much that back leg has to stretch. But this stretch through the hip flexors, I think, is actually setting us up for much greater success with our knees. Because if these are tight, then we're getting constant pulling on the knee. and you have two tendons, you have a tendon here and a tendon here. So just because this one's getting pulled up, that actually means you might have pain now below just because all this is so tight. So it's hard to unlock all this when this is really tight. And for our backs, we spend so much time sitting, driving, on our phone. We're like this so much that I think we have an extreme imbalance. And I think that basically all humans, unless they're training for it, have stiff hip flexors. And this would be a normal lunge, it doesn't stretch it. And now if you just stretch against it, that's okay, but you're not strengthening. When you get stronger, so you're handling that tension. When you get stronger through a stretch position, you create a much greater difference in how much you actually lengthen and hold that flexibility. Pushing against flexibility is very different than being able to own it and hold it. And the effects seem to be like exponential in terms of injury reduction, in terms of being able to keep your flexibility and not have to just keep stretching. Last point in the ATG split squat is we do want to get measurably stronger. So our normal thing would be to do 5 reps, take a 30-second break, do the other side 5 reps, 5 sets of 5. That accumulates 25 reps. But once that's easy, now I want you to do 3 sets of 8. When that gets easy, I want you to do 2 sets of 12. And when that gets easy, I want you to try to do 25 in a row. Still with a short break, let things cool off between sides, because even that back side is working really hard. So you always take a break between legs on this particular exercise. This is the first point in the session that you should take a break, is between legs. So now being able to build up to do 25 in a row would be an excellent goal. You wouldn't even necessarily have to change the exercise, you just get better at the exercise. And that brings in a little point, which is healing with high reps, meaning doing this motion and then loading for 5 reps. That would be cool. We do that as well in advanced Sierra. We have 2 different workouts in advanced Sierra. One where we're just doing 25 reps in a row, 1 to 2 sets. Is it a weak point for you? Do you have a weak side? 2 sets on the weak, 1 set on the strong. And then a separate session adding load. So when we, for the same amount of low reps, get stronger, that creates a bulletproofing effect. There's more potential to prevent injury in the first place. But there's also the internal healing process. And when we do high reps, we get more blood flow, more healing. Now continuing on up, we go to the hamstrings. So this elephant walk really just allows us to build time under tension going through a lengthened position in that hamstring. But this is where I want to talk about levels. There's so much gain available to us. Something like a Nordic hamstring curl, which physiotherapists over and over and over are telling me, that's the #1 exercise to bulletproof your ACL or this or that. I only trained it probably a few times in my life. I never trained it the way someone trains, how you train your bench press every week and you try to get stronger. So elephant walk is awesome to build the base. And then maybe it's not convenient to get into Nordics, okay? If you're a gym goer, get a Nordic strap, boom. Any bench becomes a Nordic. If you train from home, I just use my squat rack, put the bar on the other side, thick padding, towel around it, now I get to work my Nordic. So the point is there's so much to be gained. What if now you train your Nordic once a week for 10 years, right? So I want to talk about levels there. So not only do we have this flow to get us out of pain fast, not only do we have all these different manipulations to get us out of pain fast, there's also the long-term effect of what are we doing on our body? What levels are we applying for how long? So it's still sensible. I would say do 3 sets, 5 once a week the rest of your life. And now from lengthening these, we get into our L-sit. Allows us to train our hip flexors. This would be ideal. Drop a leg, keeping the glutes off. 2-second holds would be a regression. And then butt down, 2-second holds. But depending on how weak your knees are, you might not even be able to do this. That's where the knee raise comes in, 20 reps per side. And then, 1 pound at a time, you can use that monkey foot thing, which basically saves you from having to get a million sets of ankle weights. Plus, I load that up now. I do sets of 20 with 20 pounds on there, which is much tougher than it sounds. That's really the final unorthodox tool that I use. And so that allows you, with less load than even the lowest level of L-sit, you could start with just body weight working those hip flexors. Basically, we're going to be improving everything from the ground up. So now we have more potential, so we want to be able to pick up our leg just as easy. So that's where the real magic is everything it gets easier to handle. Gravity, we can put more force in without pain, and our legs, even though they're getting stronger, they actually feel lighter to us to pick up because we're getting our hip flexors stronger too. But we don't want to leave them in a shortened position like that. So then we have our couch stretch, which is gentle. If your ankle's too tight, use a bench. And this is the final teaching point, is that if we can take a stretch like the couch stretch and gradually transition that as we go into advanced Sierra, with 3 sets of 5 reps on a reverse Nordic, which also scales. That's actually the last little teaching point, is there is no such thing as an advanced exercise, okay? There may be progressions, but even a reverse Nordic, if you elevate the feet, it still regresses down. So taking a calf stretch, that's a stretch position, and gradually loading into a reverse Nordic, it's gonna have a totally different effect than just continuing on the same stretch. So that's how, even with all kinds of junk in my knee, that even 10 years after, even with success stretching, but it would still tighten back up, tighten back up, now it feels like I'd never had surgery. And that leads to so much greater levels of bulletproofing. And what did I do? I actually removed complication. Now I only need my own body weight and a pad to lay on. So this is the first time I've taken all 8 steps and put it into a flow like this. If you watch this, if you get it, you now know how to regress every single step, how to progress every single step. And you can, I think, also kind of see the framework of how 0 progresses into advanced 0. Instead of 3 body weight simple sessions, we now do 2 different leg days in advanced 0. 1 loaded, going through these same 8 steps in different ways, and then 1 unloaded, body weight. So we're still getting that body weight style, but even in more challenging ways. And we're applying equipment so that we can even get, more targeted, specific effects. Last but not least, send form video, send messages. Something magical happens when we really engage in that coaching process.